Welcome to Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, episode number 59. This is the show where we talk about things. What do you talk about, Logan?
Motorcycle questions and motorcycle related
products.
Oh.
Right, good. Yeah, you're getting better. One of these days you're gonna nail that. So, I'm here with a couple of my co-hosts, some local dudes from around the way. I got, of course, Logan the talker, and got Matt Mattoon, who was a local. He ditched us, but he's back for
on to greener pastures. There's no green here, so I guess it's not really greener. It's just green.
Yeah, he's on to bigger and better things, going to college like he's supposed to, but he's quarantined now or locked out because had to come home. They kicked him out of school because there's no learning during the quarantine. So tonight's show is brought to you by KTM, Climb, DDC, Delaney Drive Components, and Kate's Bars. Because sometimes we're powered by Kate's Bars, right?
Yeah.
I'm on a limited Kate's Bar power supply right now.
I know there's only one in this box over here.
I know, it's like,
and it happens to be my favorite flavor.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you be like every other co-host and just steal it?
Well, because it's the last one, and I don't want to be that guy. You know.
I'm going to tell you something about being that guy.
Okay.
You can do everybody. This is my take on this, and you call me what you will after I say this. It's like I feel like I do everybody a favor when I take the last cookie on the plate or the last Kate's Bar in the bin. I just go. I have no problem. Like when I see somebody take the second to last one, I go in there and get that last one. And if it's sitting there forever, I'll go take it because I don't care, because it makes everybody uncomfortable to take the last one. So I actually take it.
Okay.
And then I don't feel bad about it. I feel like I'm doing everybody a favor, just like they feel bad. And then they all look at me like, oh, that guy took the last one.
So whenever I'm at a party and I notice that all like the cookies are gone or whatever is left, I'll just know it was Jimmy.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, it was Jimmy.
Blame me.
Yeah.
That's the best thing. That's the best thing to do. So thanks a lot for all of our sponsors. Logan, since he loves to talk, is ready to do our KTM read. You got that? What is KTM?
Marietta.
Yeah.
Powered by a distinct ready-to-race mentality, KTM is the world's leading high-performance street and off-road sport motorcycle manufacturer. With North America headquarters based in Marietta, California, over the years, KTM has built a reputation on a fierce competitor on racetracks around the world, and the brand's remarkable global success is reflected in every product it develops and every move it makes.
Right on. So, Logan, what do you ride?
KTM.
So you hardly even have to say that, do you? It's just you would. What would you say? What's your favorite bike?
KTM.
Oh, good. That's a good answer. Yeah, and that just can't. You didn't even have to think about that much, right? So thanks for KTM. I will have to say, and Climb makes, I feel, some of the world's best motorcycle riding gear. I wear Climb for fun. Matt, what do you wear?
I wear Climb.
Yeah, I saw you today.
Yeah. That XC jersey, I still think it's like one of the best ventilating jerseys out there. Is really good.
Yeah, I was wearing XC stuff today. We flat tracked. The three of us flat tracked today. I dominated over these guys.
Yes.
Used my
why.
old age and experience and the fact that I own the track. And I mean, when I say I own the track, I really do own the track.
Yeah, you made it.
Yeah, I made it. I own it. I'm trying to teach these guys to perfect prepping of the flat track because that's really critical. Consistency is a big thing out there. Mm-hmm. So we were wearing our Climb gear. I was thinking today, as I was wearing a different brand helmet, I had to reach up and actually buckle the helmet. And if you have never seen this little buckle that Climb helmets have, they're called a fidlock, and it's on their higher end helmets, and it's a little magnetic clip that comes on and off only one way. It's just weird. You just pull on it, but it's real easy when you know how to do it. It pulls off, but it will not come undone unless you specifically pull it that way. And I get pissed off every time I'm wearing a different helmet that doesn't have that system, because it's so nice. And when we're in flat track, we're doing 10 or 15 minutes, pulling our helmets off, dragging, prepping the track, put it back on. Makes a big difference. So if you haven't seen a Fidlock helmet thing on one of the Climb Cryos or any of their helmets, check them out. Really good products. So what else do we have? DDC, Delaney Drive Components. That's ddcracing.net. Logan's going to pick that up without making a ton of noise. Both of you guys, that was good. Synchronized.
Yeah. It's like we've done this before.
Yeah.
We actually practiced.
Nate's been a big supporter of the show from the beginning. They support land use issues. They're out there being proactive in the community. Support companies that support giving you free content like this, because you're getting what you pay for until you don't buy the sprockets, and then they don't support us, and then I should get a discount code again from Nate. Then he saw a few people actually bought them. But yeah, if you need sprockets and chains and kits and stuff like that for your dirt bike, DDC has them. What else is going on, guys? Anything else? We're gonna go straight to the questions. Is that the plan? Well, Matt had a question.
I did have a question, actually. Yeah.
Even after sitting in through the whole last show where he was the co-host, where he could have asked me, he didn't want to interrupt the flow of the show.
Yeah.
By asking me a question.
Well, I could tell you're enjoying the tequila a little bit, so I was. I just wanted to let Jimmy be Jimmy. What KTM tells you.
Yeah. Speaking of which, go.
Okay, so my question was actually, so I have a 2012 Husaberg 300, and it has the PDS shock? Yeah, the PDS system in there. And I know those little pivot bearings, they lose grease ridiculously fast. And every time I've re-greased it 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years now. Actually, even more than that, I think. And it seems to lose the grease just like a couple times. And I'm looking after just a couple of rides. And when I look at the bearings, they're not rusted. They don't really seem to be they don't seem worn out. And I've replaced these bearings actually a couple times, so I always have this problem. So I was just wondering if I'm packing grease in there wrong, or if because I'm putting in there like a lot of grease in there, but it seems to always go bad after a little bit.
So when you do this, you're actually popping the seals off the side, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you see the ball.
Yeah.
And then have you ever spun the ball like?
Yeah.
And is there a groove in the ball or a groove in the race?
No, it looks pretty smooth.
So what I do, some it depends on the bearing manufacturer, all different kinds of things, because and it depends on the type of bearing. And so when it's a ball, I tend to try to spin the ball, kind of 90 degrees. So you're looking at the round surface of the ball, and then there's kind of the 2 slots going through, in the area where the bolt will go. Yeah. And then I take grease on a small screwdriver, and then I kind of wipe it up into the race, into the channel, and then I'll smear grease on the side of the ball, and then I'll spin it 90 more degrees and do the same thing. So in theory, you've greased, you spin it 90 and rotate it 90, and then in theory you've kind of greased all the possible surfaces.
Yeah.
And then I spin it around, and just with the like I said, a lot of times I'll stick the screwdriver in there, and I can use the screwdriver to rotate the sphere around, and move it around, and that will smear the grease around and get in there. Sometimes the tolerances are pretty tight. So if it's drying out that quick, you could be using maybe not the right type of grease. Okay, and there's a lot of different types of grease, and I've used Maxima, makes a really nice grease. Silkline has a really nice grease that was hard to get. And the good thing about the Silkline one is they have this little thing inside the container that you push down on, and the grease came out of the middle, so it was really easy to get pieces. But a good motorcycle company grease. I mean, the tub will last you for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it, it's maximum $20. If you pay even that, sometimes they're 10. But
I've heard they're good for bicycles too, actually.
yeah. So I would apply enough in there, and then when you line the ball back up like it's supposed to, then there's the sleeves that go inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
I lube the outside of those, and then those punch kind of into the seals, and there's usually a little area around when the seals are set in. There's an area in there that has an airspace. I pack grease into that airspace, so that the whole thing's kind of packed in, and then I put it together, and sometimes some squeezes out, and then I clean all that off with a rag and call it good. Okay. It depends on where you're riding, how often those goes dry, but I only do it when I service my shocks, shock or suspension stuff, and that's maybe every 40 hours, depending on it depends on the bike, right. how hard I'm riding the bike and whatnot. But and there's sometimes they're relatively dry, but not super bad. Okay. So what you can tell when they go bad is when you start, you put the bike on the stand, you lift the wheel, and it goes kunk, 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 kunk.
Yeah. Because
sometimes you can hold you hold the shock, and is it the upper one or the lower one, or is it the swing arm pivot, or is it wheel bearings?
Right.
So you can kind of chase that down. And on shock linkages, then you have an additional 1, 2, 3 other things to lube,
right.
And a lot of times those are needle bearings, or maybe they're just plain bearings. All different kinds of bearings in there. But good question, Matt. I'm glad you're doing the maintenance on your bike. Which is kind of strange because you used to not do that.
Hey, lessons learned, right?
Exactly.
I actually need to. I think I need to order a carb rebuild kit for it, because when I was at a motocross track last weekend, I noticed it was leaking pretty bad from the carb. The gas was
out of the overflows or out of the carb itself.
I think out of the carbs itself, like on the sides, like where the float bowl connects to it. Yeah, it could have dried out. Mm-hmm. Could have dried out. But carb rebuild kits are usually a good investment, especially when it's sitting for a while. Yeah, definitely.
So a couple other little announcements I have. If anybody's familiar with the Backcountry Discovery Route, that's basically adventure bike riders. They have these different routes in different states that are just off the kind of beaten path, fun adventure bike routes. If you haven't checked it out, search Backcountry Discovery Routes, and you can find that. They have lots of videos. There's all kinds of stuff there. They are giving away a KTM 790, and it's not just a stock one. They go through the TourTech catalog and a few other companies' catalogs and trick that bike out. And last year it was a KTM 1090, and it was a really sweet bike by the time it was done. But if you this BDR Special Edition KTM 790 Adventure R Sweepstakes, it's www.winktm790.com. And any of the proceeds from that raffle go to the Backcountry Discovery Foundation. That basically, it's a nonprofit that helps keep these routes available, making new routes, stuff like that. And you can enter to win a really sweet bike. That's my public service announcement.
Do you know how much the raffle tickets are?
I don't recall. I didn't do my research. I was out flat tracking.
I'm actually gonna look it up right now because I'm really interested. Because I really want a new bike.
Yeah, it might be worth it. I mean, man, the guy that won the 1090 last year was so stoked. He got such a good bike. Teresa Rubian, you got that? Rubian, how do you sell that?
Rubio.
It's just Rubio.
I don't know.
Rubiano. Okay, what's the question?
Jimmy, can I use bib mousses on a dual sport short trip on street, 20 minutes max? And what color throttle cam do you use? Do you have in 2020 KTM 300 ECW when you tested it?
So, can I use bib mousses for short trips on the street, 20 minutes max? Yes. as long as you're not going 90 miles an hour for those entire 20 minutes, which would be illegal. But little, short jaunts on the mousses are not going to hurt them. When I do moose durability testing, I tend to take them out onto a dry lake bed and run them at 90 to 100 miles an hour for 20 to 30 minutes, and to see if there's any adverse effects from that. And usually, that's not. I mean, they do heat up. It depends on how much you're spinning the bike, spinning the tire, and generally on pavement, you're not spinning your tire. What really kills mousses is those UTV bumps. Those UTV hoops that are, 8 inches apart or something like that.
Yeah.
Riding on washboardy, but those are like gnarly washboards, that will kill your moose. So high speeds on those will really do a number on your moose. But no, that shouldn't hurt. Short dual sport trips should not hurt a decent moose that's lubed up well and properly sized. All the normal stuff. Maybe if you are running one of the super soft ones, the extreme enduro ones, yes, but a normal one, no. What throttle cam? I don't know. I didn't know that there's different color throttle cams on a 2020 KTM. Are there? Maybe somebody in the chat room can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wrote it however it came stock, and I don't know what they had in the bikes that we tested because I never took the throttle cam off. I never felt the need to. So, and I haven't seen personally. I have not seen the parts bag that comes with it because KTM a lot of times would have. Well, they used to have different color power valve springs in it, but now maybe they're putting different color throttle cams in it. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing they want to send out. Maybe somebody can kind of check in if they know that specifically. But I ran whatever it came with, and I can't be 100% sure whether it came with the one that it's delivered with at the dealer because I never checked. So, but I suspect it was the way it was stock because those guys don't want to change anything. What's the
so I looked up
where the raffle ticket? $20?
So it's like you can donate, and donations as small as $25 will get you in there for that raffle. Right, I believe if I read it correctly.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. I'm going to read the next one. My name is Keith Hamilton. I got that right first time, huh?
Yeah.
Good old American name. It's easy to do.
Yeah.
A long-time fan and even longer-time rider. I'm riding because I am in the search for my next bike, and I have a few questions about durability and serviceability that I can't seem to find online. I'm a big guy, 6'6", 250 pound, who prefers the upright riding position of dirt bikes. Here on the East Coast, my riding will be approximately 80-20 street to dirt, with hopes of returning west one day. I've narrowed down my choices to the Africa Twin, the KTM 990, 1090, or 1190. Knowing that you are very familiar with KTMs, would you choose a 990, 1090, 1190 over the Africa Twin? For your information, I always loved the look of the 990, and there was a 2012 with 8,000 miles for sale. I plan to do all service and maintenance myself, so I would like a bike that will stand the test of time. Very descriptive, tells me what's going on. He's looking at basically adventure bikes, and he wants to make his decision based on durability. And so I answered him, and this is basically what I told him. If you're riding the bike and not abusing it, any kind of riding, but not being abusive, and you're doing the service, whether you're doing it yourself or taking it someplace else at regular, safe intervals, that there is no durability concerns or issues with any of the bikes that we talked about right there. Like you're a Honda Africa Twin and a KTM whatever displacement are all going to be the same. In fact, I would pretty much go across the board saying that most of the major manufacturers, major brands, if you're using them properly and maintaining them properly, you're never going to have a durability issue that isn't a fluke thing. Now, crashing into a tree is not a durability issue, and hitting a water bar 20 miles an hour too fast is not a durability issue. So
hitting whoops on an adventure bike,
not a durability. Holding the bike wide open in the sand and pumping the clutch is not a durability issue. So normal use, you're not going to have any problems. Now, if you start doing these certain things, if you want to abuse the bike, yeah, then we can say certain bikes might last a little bit longer or might handle that a little bit better. But brand to brand, you're not going to see any big differences in that. So, yeah, Keith, thanks for chiming in. Where's Mark Bermcannon? Where's he at? Is he anybody been following him on the internets?
Oh no.
Is he in there?
Yeah.
Has he been putting up? Because I want to know where my KTM 390 is. When he took that thing, I really thought he was going to be back in 3 days. I thought, this bike might be a little, too novice or entry level for him. He's been riding forever. No, he's gone. He just he's like Gabe when you give him a check, gone. So maybe Mark can give us an update. Throw up the links and stuff in the chat room to what you've been doing, and we'll announce them on the thing. But if you go check out Baja Diaries and Bermcannon on the internet, he's in possession of putting miles on our KTM 390 before I can get it back here to modify it into a slightly better adventure platform. So what does Aaron Smith wanted to say?
Just wanted to say, normally don't comment on videos, but you have done a great job and have enjoyed the videos over the past few weeks since the 390 adventure video. I'm new to the world of motorcycle dirt bikes. 30-year-old father of two. I've learned to ride on a 1983 XT 250 that I was finally able to get running over the past year, and wanted something bigger and more reliable than my mechanic work. Just wanted to say, keep up the good work, and hopefully I'll control at slow speeds. Has really helped me with my riding, blasting through sand washes and climbing jawbone style hills. Just not appeal to me anymore. Yeah.
Yep. So pat on the back for me, right? Is that what it said? Or do we switch the pages up? Did you get
it's for Bermcannon.
That's
Aaron Smith.
No, that's he's talking about the KTM 390.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully I'll be able to learn a thing or two on it. Let's see. You got your pages mixed up, Logan. You started reading the next question. Somehow or another, are you reading last week's question?
I might have accidentally mixed up his papers when I was copying them.
Oh boy.
This might have been on me.
Okay, so anyways, basically he's saying he's able. At the end it didn't make sense. What didn't make sense was the pour you just gave me out of that tequila bottle.
Okay, that thing is heavy. Okay, it's trying to pour it like this.
It's heavy and expensive.
Yes. So I was very cautious.
Okay, yeah.
And I know how much you like it, so I thought I could give you a little bit more.
Oh, you did. Okay, so
college student.
I'll figure out the. So anyways, he says he wants to learn a thing or two on the KTM 390, and the other thing he says, my 5-year-old son has been bitten by the moto bug. So pat on the back to you. I don't know if I did that. Got his kid addicted to motorcycles, but
it's never a bad thing.
No. Hey Logan, do you know what a 1983 Yamaha XT 250 is?
No.
No. When were you born?
2005.
Right.
Oh, jeez. No, I'm 23 and you have me feeling old.
Okay, yeah. So those were not really good motorcycles. I had an XT 600. I called it the Lucky Logger Explorer.
My mom actually, one of her first bikes was an XT 250.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So these are old Kickstart ones. I don't remember exactly the XT. They used to have a XT, or no, they had a TT 350, XT and a TT. Yeah, because I won one in a raffle in District 37. I got a TT 350, which, man, Heather and I rode. We went on some of our first dual sport rides. I had the Lucky Logger Explorer, the TT 600. Yeah, TT 600. So hey, Aaron, thanks for I'm glad you're new to the world of motorcycles, and you're the perfect candidate for that bike. I don't think you would be disappointed by it at all. And next, what is you got to say that name?
A Ping Superstar.
A Ping Superstar. Okay.
Not too thrilled and disappointed in how it came out.
He's talking about my KTM 390 video.
Yeah. I was expecting a more traditional adventure bike in the same line as the 690 with
I thought he was talking about my video.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, go ahead.
With an 18 rear wheel and a 21 front wheel. And adventure then followed
up with an adventure and supermoto model, more like a traditional KTM bike.
That poor riders such as myself fantasize about owning. This model is just a regular, comfortable standard model, a more comfortable Duke model. In fact, this model should be named Duke Touring Model. It's what it is.
Well, you're named a Ping Superstar, so I think we should test a Ping. Because if you're called a superstar, how many we should find out how many followers you have on YouTube or Instagrams or wherever this came from. Then we can hey, I kind of get where you're coming from, but as a poor person, as a fellow poor person, you can't. You're going to get what you pay for in this world. You're not going to get this super high-end adventure bike. You're not going to get like a mini 790 at $6,000, $6,200. It's just not going to happen. You need to spend $10,000 to get that. And so I know you're kind of it is. They basically took the Duke. That's how they kept the price down. They took the Duke. They changed some stuff to make it into an adventure bike. They did a really good job with it. For the people that are going to be buying this bike, hopefully you're not expecting a 790 when you buy this bike, because it's not that. So, but I don't think it should be called a Duke touring model. It is kind of they put a big enough tank on it where it gets plenty of fuel range, and it's an adventure. So the suspension actually works pretty good for that bike. So in an adventure setting, I think it could do with better tires, but we're dirt bike testing. We're biased that way. So, Logan, what'd you find out? How many videos he's got? Is he just a complainer? Or he's a gamer?
I can't figure out yet.
Okay, good. You keep doing the research.
I think he's kind of missing the point of the bike. It's supposed to be an adventure. It's supposed to be an intro level adventure bike, and what you kind of went into detail with your previous podcast on it was it's also meant to serve as like an intro bike for like the entire world, kind of like introducing into those markets where they're still riding like 50cc mopeds.
Yeah, and maybe for smaller riders, smaller riders that don't need a bigger adventure bike or intimidated by a bigger adventure bike. That brings us into our next question by Verbal Widget, and he says,
387 pounds. Why would you not buy a DR650? Seat height should be low with only 7 inches of suspension. This was almost like a paid KTM impression, not a test. Very sugar-coated review.
Thanks, Verbal Widget. I have to just announce my disclaimer that the views expressed in this show are of Jimmy Lewis and Dirt Bike Test and Matt and Logan, not of KTM. But it was not a paid KTM impression test, and it wasn't sugar-coated. It was actually the fact. And do you think that Verbal Widget owns a DR650? And he's just pushing his agenda on us? You're thinking that?
I think so.
Yeah, your head went up and down. You fully agreed with me there. Hey, I think a DR650 is a great bike. In fact, I will, out of all of the 650s, if you're looking at a 650 single-cylinder, dual sport, kind of like, I think the DR650 is the best compromise out of all of them when you're talking about XR650L, KLR650, the KTM. We'll even throw the KTM and Husky 690 701 in there. I think
really?
I literally believe is the DR650 is the best one of those bikes for just kind of doing everything. It has a great motor, just a chug along good motor. The only thing it suffers in is the fuel tank. It's got a small tank on it, but you can get a big tank for it.
Yeah.
But the suspension's comfortable and plush. It does everything good. The seat height's actually pretty low, where the XR650L has a tall seat height and kind of a funky transmission. The KLR 650 feels like it makes only 2/3 of the power of the other bikes. But when people say, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting an adventure bike," and I say, "Buy a KLR 650," that's my first answer, because it has a big gas tank.
It's my uncle's, but I still like my 650 a lot, the KLR.
Yeah, so
it's a great bike.
You're lucky Big John's not in here, because he'd be telling you KLR 650 stories all day long.
Oh, he's got some good ones too.
Yeah, and he's like the early generation KLR 650. But anyway, so
they have that Barbie. They have that Barbie KLR, and that one's
the pink.
I would buy the Barbie KLR so fast.
Yeah. So verbal widget. Thanks for beating us up. I wish we were getting paid more by KTM to do impressions. So no, that's a full that's a full test. It's good. We have some questions about our CRF 450. I nailed that question. I answered the guy on the internets.
For the CRF 450X mod, CRF 450L Ventures asked, "Hey, what's up? I'm in need of some help. I got a full system FMF Q4 Megabomb, but it seems to be a little too long for it. The muffler is a perfect fit. It seems that the header is a little too long. Any suggestions? Thank you."
So I told him, I said, if it doesn't fit, I'm guessing that you, on accident or somehow inadvertently, got the wrong header. And I was right. I'd never seen this guy. I just said, hey, if it doesn't fit, it was probably the wrong one. He actually got the wrong one. He didn't tell me what it was, but I was guessing he probably got one for a CRF 450R and not a CRF 450L on accident, or however it was, but that's what happened. But I also went in to say, if you're having trouble mounting your exhaust system, and I've seen a lot of guys do this, they'll actually go and bolt the header on and tighten it up, and then try to slip the muffler onto it. And that whole system has to be aligned properly. And if you tighten the header up, it's in a round flange, and you tighten it up and can kind of go crooked. And if it's tilted down or up, it's going to change the position of where the header and the muffler junction is. Sometimes on some bikes there's an additional bolt hole, but if you look at the bolt holes on the chassis of most bikes, it's not a straight bolt into a fixed nut. There's always a sliding a sliding fitting on there. There's some way to allow it to move, and that's mostly to allow for chassis flex. They want the chassis to be able to flex and not try to tear the muffler, break the muffler, affect the muffler. So I said, hey, make sure that your header, and this is something that anybody can use, when you are installing your header and your muffler, put them on loosely. Put them both on loosely, kind of slip fit them. And typically I will, have everything loose, wiggle it around. I will tighten the muffler first, because the muffler has two bolts that are very, you can move it around, but I'll make sure everything's kind of close. I'll tighten the muffler first, then snug the header down, then loosen the muffler, wiggle it around, and then retighten it. So you're kind of like centering everything up in the best position that it can be in. And the last thing I tighten is if there is a second, like farther back towards on the header, back towards the muffler, if there's a bolt there, that's the last one I will tighten up after everything's, set and lined up. So A lot of times when you have people complain about their bikes popping and backfiring, it's an exhaust leak because your exhaust system is in a bind and it's allowing air to sneak in there. Sometimes there's a flange fit up at the right at the beginning of the header. There's some springs up there that allow some flex and different things. But that's kind of the second thing I told him. But when I found out it was the wrong header, it was a moot point, and he said he got the right one and it bolted right on. Amazing. So you get the next name, Logan.
Thin Nigan.
Right.
Hi Jimmy, quick question. For an enduro bike, 450 RX Honda, which battery would you pick? Lithium ion, WPS, or lithium iron? That was so wrong.
Lithium iron phosphate.
Phosphate. Life.
It's LiFePO4. That's the chemical. Matt, do you know
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain those chemicals? Aren't most lithium batteries lithium iron phosphate, or are they straight lithium ion? I think they're all.
I think lithium ion.
That's the short term, but they're all lithium ion phosphate.
I'm pretty sure the chemicals in those batteries, they're all extremely similar.
Yeah.
But I'm just speculating. I actually don't really know anything too much about the batteries. But
What
I
if?
do know.
If the Earth, because the Earth is spinning.
Yeah.
And if the Earth stops spinning, that battery, because it's lighter, would it fly? What would it do? Which would you rather have sitting behind you when the Earth stops spinning? A lead battery or a lithium battery?
A lithium battery.
Right.
Less potential.
do you ever think about the Earth stop spinning? The rotation of the Earth?
It'd be very bad.
Yeah,
it depends on how sudden it stops, but it'd still be very bad.
Because I didn't pay much attention in school, but then I was one day I was a owner builder on a project, and I wonder why we had to put all the clamps and fasteners and stuff on the in the foundation and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to apply this to motorcycles and motorcycle riding, but so we're bolting things down. We're paying a guy like way more than I made to sit there and watch me pump glue into a threaded fitting. To attach it to the foundation and check the depth of the hole and make sure that it was clean and all this other stuff. And I couldn't figure out why, but had a very wise friend of mine, Dave Donatoni, who's my riding buddy, explained to me that you always have to be concerned that if one day the Earth stops rotating, that your shit doesn't go flying out into the atmosphere. That's why we have to glue that stuff down. Yeah, or in case of an earthquake, which is different kind of thing. But yeah. So, take that for what it's worth. We're back to lithium-ion batteries. Hey, if this show had a lithium-ion battery sponsor right now, I would be giving that company a really big plug, wouldn't I?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I have a riding school that has a battery supporting sponsor. Do you know what battery that is?
Starts with an S. I don't remember the name.
You guys got to say it right. Come on.
Showa? No.
Isn't it Shinomi?
Oh, come on. Keep going.
I actually don't remember it. I
Gabe?
look for stickers.
There we go. Gabe yelled it out. Shirai. Shirai. So,
I have a sticker somewhere on my bike.
So, probably because I got you a battery.
No, Connor just put it on one day.
Right. Just playing with the stickers.
Yeah.
So the two batteries I recommended to him, because these are the two batteries I have experience with. They're both good batteries. Is the Shirai battery, the lithium-ion battery, and the anti-gravity lithium-ion battery. And those two I know and I have experience with. Batteries are, man, you can have some that last forever, and you can have some that last 2 years. And I don't know what the rhyme or reason is. And you can put two brand new batteries in two bikes that are used identically, and one may last 4 years and one will last 7.
And they're the same brand?
Same brand, same thing. And, who knows? But for the most part, if you go with a trusted name brand, they'll last exactly 1 month past when the warranty runs out. And this goes for the battery in your car and all the other stuff. If you're looking at price, I would say when you look at the price, if you find one that's way less expensive than anything else, I would stay away from that one because there's obviously they're cutting some corners someplace. And if there's something that's extremely expensive, you have to kind of weigh what they're saying their advantages are. You know, there's some of these new restart features on some of them. I know a lot of those lithium-ion batteries have something that when they get to a certain point, they actually stop discharging so they don't lose all their voltage because, you know, draining a lithium-ion battery all the way down is really bad. Some of them have had difficulties in charging. There's all different things, but I have Shoutouts batteries in probably 37 of my 40 rental bikes, and can report that they're really darn good. You know, it was funny because I pulled some out this year that had gone bad, and they'd been in there anywhere from 3 to 7 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And those bikes sit for 2 to 3 months at a time, and get tested in that way. So, anyways, I don't have. I have one bike. I don't have one bike that has a WPS battery in it because the WPS battery is out of the bike because it wasn't cranking very well. It still shows it holds a charge, but it doesn't have the cranking apps. And I've never used the Mighty Max, so I can't comment on that.
And that's the firepower battery, right?
I don't. Mine is not the WPS battery I have is not a firepower one.
Oh, okay,
it's just a WPS battery. It actually has a little button on top that you can push that has these little LEDs that show whether it's charged, and it shows charged, but you put it in a bike and you go to crank it and it just means the cells have calcified,
right,
or whatever cells do. So there's ways to bring them back. You can see all kinds of videos on the internet on how to rejuvenate batteries at your own risk.
Yeah.
Matt, what's our next question?
So this one's going to be about Husky 501s from a YouTuber. How often do you have to check the valve clearance on the 2020 Husqvarna FE501S?
The manual will tell you exactly when you're supposed to check the valves. I mean, like to the hour. Mm-hmm. And the first valve check is quite quick, and then it'll give you service intervals. If you flick farther back into the manual and you use that bike for competition, that manual will tell you the competition service intervals, that are a little bit sooner.
Do people use the FE501 for competitions?
Some people do. They strip them down. There's a guy that knows how to get 70 horsepower out of those, believe it or not.
Oh, he's going to have another appearance tonight, isn't he?
Well, the question will.
Yeah.
So, but when would I change it? And this is, I think I actually replied to him on the thread. So if my bike started up, it starts right up, and if my bike was not making any additional mechanical ticking noises, I would not check my valves. I wouldn't even bother. And I'm basing this on years of experience with that engine family, with that brand's durability and reputation. I would go 100 hours, and I would not have any need to check the valves. On my KTM 350, I remember I was a little worried about it, and I kept checking it. And I just made the valve cover gasket leak more because it never went out of spec. And my KTM 500s, I just quit checking them because after 400 hours and the valves never moved, what's the point? And on the ones that I did check, that they did move, generally I noticed, and the reason I went to check them was my bike became a little bit harder to start. It wasn't firing right up. It actually had to crank 20 rotations as opposed to 3 or 4. So it was hey, and then you go check it, and sure enough, intake, exhaust valve, something is a little bit tight is generally the thing. And generally I noticed that maybe the air filter had let a little bit of dirt seep by or something. So there was always a reason for it. Or, I've purchased used bikes from guys that I know that are really hard on them. They ride bikes really hard. They were rev limiting it, running it a little bit at the edge. And that could tend to make valves move a little bit. So if you're not riding on the rev limiter and you're not sucking dirt, your valves probably aren't going to move. You don't need to check it that much. But maybe just... check your manual and then listen to what I say and then check it a couple times in between those things. And then when you notice it don't move, then you can adopt my thing. I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it. It's not a big deal. That they're building these bikes pretty strong these days. Okay, next one.
Paul King, from someone picking apart this Bible verse.
Oh, that word Bible is a. It should have been bike.
Oh.
Bike. This bike. He's talking about the Husky 501 versus the KTM 500.
And Honda Sierra 450L. That was one of the most informative reviews I've ever seen yet. I've not had a dual sport and won't buy until I know I'm headed in the right direction. A lot of videos I'm seeing are either biased or one machine or another, or it's all about upgrades and what to replace and spend more money on top of a $12,000 bike. I like in the first place.
There's some typos there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Logan actually does read at what level are you at now? What grade?
8.5.
8.5 grade level. Yeah, because they quit taking him to school. He hasn't been in practice. That's why we're bringing him in here. But you guys are typing at a 3rd grade level.
It's not Logan on.
It's not Logan, and the fact that we hand him these questions about 30 seconds before the show and 30 seconds before the show and say, hey, here you go, kid. So, anyways, I'm good at skipping over it because I used to have to read these letters all the time. When I was at the magazine, we would get letters after letters and some of them were typed, some of them were, they were written in prison calligraphy. You get it all out there, but so he's been leaning towards the Honda, but now he's not too. Our video made him not too sure. So again, we're selling Huskies, even though we're sponsored by KTM. And hey, Paul, you're. And he's picking apart these bikes, and watching all the videos and stuff. Good for you for doing your research, and good for you for realizing that there's a lot of different opinions out there, and everybody has one, and they're entitled to it. And we do not have any biases here, even though we have sponsors. I would venture that any of the bikes that you are looking at, of those 3, you'd be very happy with. They're so good. The Husky and the KTM are very, very similar, and I think at some place on Dirt Bike Test we talk about that and break it down a little bit. We were going to do some more additional videos, but I don't know why we didn't. Maybe time constraints. We went riding. But compared to the Honda, if I were going to say, if the Honda has advantages over the Husky or the KTM, maybe even more so the Husky, because the Husky has a plastic subframe. The Honda subframe is very, very robust. It's built pretty sturdy. And if you're thinking about packing on extra luggage stuff, bags, carrying things, I would think that that's where the Honda kind of stands out. And if the more road miles you're logging, I think the Honda motor vibrates and runs a little bit smoother on the highway. That being said, when you start getting into the performance criteria, the Honda chassis is a little bit stiffer, so the KTM is a little more forgiving off-road. I think the KTM suspension is just a little bit better off-road. Of course, being a 500, KTM has feels like it has a little bit more torque and drivability. So it's a toss up. I would venture to say you'd probably be, if you're planning on modifying the bike, which doesn't sound like you are, you're going to have just a little bit more options with the KTM. Although if you dig deep enough, you can find stuff for either of those bikes, almost anything you would ever imagine doing. So, yeah, Paul, thanks for chiming in on that question. So everybody's wondering, how do I get my questions answered on this podcast? Well, we go over, we watch what people are commenting on our YouTube videos. There's not tons of them, but we try to take our time and be pretty thorough with them when we do them. We ask for questions usually on Tuesday morning on Facebook. We copy those down and do them, and then Matt brings in a question or two sometimes.
Occasionally.
Do you got the next page?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
what's the next question? Thanks for sabotaging the show, Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks for pouring that big old pour of that Clase Azul.
I can get you another one.
No, we're good.
Okay.
I could use a cerveza. No, not Reserva de la Familia. I said cerveza.
Well,
hey, Ned.
I don't have that here.
You know where the fridge is at, right? It doesn't have to be asked twice.
Brand,
Yeah. So, okay. Next question.
Kevin Moore.
Right.
300 versus 250, XC versus XCW. Do some riders on various terrain? Swapping between a 250 XC and 300 XCW. Nothing where the motors and chassis
Say it.
better suited.
It's not you, Logan. Don't worry.
I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it verbatim because it's like I this is hard to do. Noting where the motors and chassis we better suited for the number 4 bikes would be off-road musical chairs.
Oh no, you forgot a period. So it's actually we better suited for bikes would be off-road musical chairs.
Yeah. Kevin, we don't speak your language, which might be English, but it's okay.
No, that's his first language is English.
He wants us to compare the 250 and 300 KTMs and XC versus XCW. I think he's trying to tell me how to test. He's saying do some rides on various terrain, swapping between the 250 XC and 300 XCW. Hey, you know what? I actually did that. I did that at the intro.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I did it. Noting where the motors and chassis. I'm going to say the word "we" are better suited. 4 bikes would be off-road musical chairs. So
I think bounce between them.
Yeah, so he's talking about even going between the 300 and 250. So in that world, the more you like to rev, the more you will like the 250 motor, regardless of the platform. The 250 and 300 XC and XCW motors are identical. They're the same. There's no difference. The power characteristics are the same. The transmissions are different. So, but the way the motors run is the same. So if you like to torque, the more you like to torque and have the lower RPMs, upshift a little quicker than revving the bike out, the more you're going to like the 300. The more you like to rev, you're going to like the 250. XC versus XCW, so the transmissions. If you are not very good with timing your shifts and you're going to do more, we'll call it, racing type applications, and you need a tighter transmission, then you're looking at XC. If you know to rev your bike a little bit longer on the gears where there's a little wider gap, then go XCW. But the 300 pulls those gaps, bridges those gaps a little bit better than the 250. You get me, Matt? Am I?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're spot on.
Yeah. So the 350 and the 200, that's kind of the different there. So when you go to the chassis, again, XC, if you're going to go and do motocross or more aggressive stuff, XC. If you're going to be trail riding, XCW. I think we answered this at a 7 out of 10 shows. We answered that question.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty common question, surprisingly. It's not hard to find the answer.
Yeah, I get better at it.
Yeah.
I get a little bit better at answering that question. Don't you think, Logan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we can skip Matt Mattoon's question. That dingbat, we don't answer his questions too much anymore.
Is it because I'm going back to Reno?
No, you can. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you're at.
Okay.
Oh. This one looks like it's been through a war. This suds. There's a refrigerator. I have a refrigerator.
Yeah,
There's nothing. It's low tide in the refrigerator.
It's low tide in the refrigerator.
I saw a High Life in there.
Tide went out.
Yeah, I think there's a Miller High Life kind of way in the back, way there past, way down there on the bottom, someplace. I don't know. This is the guy that wants to help you out with getting a Pigard 26. That's the guy that's going to help you out. What's the question, Logan?
So if you are sponsored by KTM, does this mean you can only train KTM/Husky team riders for Dakar and other road book type racings? And does this mean we will unlikely see a Sherco or Beta or insert non-orange thing test? Congratulations on the sponsorship.
No, the fact that KTM is supporting the show does not mean that we're going to change anything that we're going to be doing. Thank you, Ned. In the way that we operate, they're just making it so that we don't quit doing this, and then you would get nothing. If I'm sponsored, does it mean we can only train KTM and Husky team? No. They don't want the Husky and KTM don't want me to train their Dakar riders. they've got a whole team over in Europe that does that. So I can train whoever wants to come and get trained. So anybody that wants to work hard.
But what if I want to get trained?
You better get a good sponsor because the budget is like astronomical. Astronomical.
What if I said please?
Do you think I have a soft side?
No.
Yeah. No, please. Yeah. Matt, it's hard work will pay off. So we'll see.
Yeah.
What do you want to go to Dakar now? What did you want to do? Remember when you first started?
I wanted a desert race.
You wanted a desert race.
Yeah, I wanted a desert race really bad.
Really bad. What happened?
Oh, my grades got really bad. So my parents wouldn't let me race.
Right. But you weren't ready because you did race a couple times, right?
I raced 5 desert races.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the results speak for themselves?
I almost won one of them, but I got too concerned with I got too laid back in first place, and I started letting off, and the guy caught back up. In the last 2 miles of that race was just silt beds and trees. It was the most dangerous thing I've ever done. Was trying to catch this guy in just silt and trees all. I hit a couple trees. I was lucky I didn't go down.
Good. Racing is dangerous. So yeah, thanks. No, I'm glad we got the sponsorship. And if you're looking for a bike, definitely check out KTM's. Where's KTM located, Logan? Don't read the notes. You got to say it. Hey,
Marietta.
Okay, Marietta in California. Where are they in Austria? I told you that question because you asked me. You said, "Where is KTM from?" Do you remember?
Oh.
The place in Austria, Mattighofen.
Yeah.
That's what the M in KTM stands for, by the way. Just a little trivia. Okay, what's the next? We got to go back up to this one.
Yeah. Chase Honalone.
Wow, you threw a Hawaiian accent into that or something like that. Chase Gina Lone.
Yeah. Jimmy, my buddy torched his Husaberg's 570 in a remote canyon in SoCal.
Okay, hold on. Can we have a moment of reflection here? He torched his Husaberg 570. That's bad. We're gonna have a moment of silence. Actually, we're not going to do a moment of silence because that's really bad for a podcast. You just keep reading because I'm going to have a sip of beer and think about that poor Husaberg 570.
He tossed it down a steep drop-off like a dummy, and it cracked the fuel connection, so when he tried to fire it back up to ride, pumped fuel all over and ignited. Left it there. There are videos.
Why are you laughing? Dude, you know how powerful a Husaberg 570 is?
But
so it doesn't surprise me that he tossed it down a hill because he probably just blipped the throttle like just a little bit, and the thing just said it responded like they do. It just went raw, and just launched out from underneath him. He wasn't respecting the Husaberg 570. It took a tumble wherever it went. I mean, I don't know how he cracked the fuel connector or any of the stuff that took. But you know what's really sad about this? Is I know where this bike is. I know I have friends that rode, and you'd think I had better friends, but they all sent me pictures of this bike, thinking it was mine. so but I mean,
so it's still there.
I don't know. It was like a few years ago. It was a couple years ago, but people sent me pictures, and I'm like, I need to know where that's at because I want to go get some parts off of it.
Yeah.
No, I've seen the pictures. I've seen a video. People sent it to me, and it's moment of. I mean,
that is a pretty funny image, though.
Everybody wants to know what's up with my Husaberg 570.
Yeah, what did happen to it actually?
We'll talk about it later.
Okay. Gabe's laughing over there. It must be good.
No, he doesn't even know.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't. I've been keeping it on the down low. You're down?
No, it let him down.
It let me down. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there was no doubt about it.
Were you trying to keep up with Andrew Short and Ricky Rayback?
Nope. Johnny Campbell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, whole different story. Kendall Norman. What's the next one?
Christopher Moritz. Thank you, Jimmy, for good feedback and enjoyable show. Good on you, Matt, for working hard as a student.
Hey.
Yeah, there we go.
Right on. I think it's Moritz. Yeah, Christopher Moritz. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Christopher. Thanks, everybody for doing good things. I think is that his question underneath there? Oh yeah, he's got a question.
He's got a couple, I think.
I'm actually thinking of going simple and purchasing the two-stroke YZ125X for my next dirt bike.
We're actually one of those should be in the back of Trevor Hunter's truck right now. You want to ride it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you were a KTM guy. What the hell? That turn coded real quick.
125.
You're a 125 guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
I'm a close to 60-year-old C rider, around 200 pounds.
So he's just like you.
Who?
No.
Yeah, I know. I'm just joking.
Is that tequila hitting again?
No.
I'll have to not pour you so much next time.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to see if Logan's thinking while he's reading.
I'm looking to go light. I'm thinking that it would actually help hone in clutching skills. Last dirt bike was a 05 300 EXC. I bought it new. I raced desert on it. The bike I took to your school is my Beta 498 dual sport. I just sold that bike that was thrashed, the 300 XC, a few years back and got a Super Tanneray. So what are your thoughts for single track trail rides? Am I being nuts getting such a small bike? Being honest with myself, after taking your class, I've slowed down. Bringing in control at slow speeds has really helped me. My riding based through blasting through sand washes and climbing jawbone style hills does not appeal to me anymore.
Does it sound familiar, that last sentence?
Yes.
Thanks, Matt. Remember you switched up his pages?
Oh,
You got the questions.
Yeah.
Mixed up. So,
It's a preview.
Christopher, so you're all over the place, man. That's why I asked Logan. Logan, do you have any advice for him when he's talking about like the clutching and the? You probably remember this guy. You remember?
I think so.
Yeah. From the school. By the way, you don't recognize Logan as a certified motorcycle training coach, right? You think who would want? How old are you now? 14
Yeah.
and a half. Almost. Yeah, like 60-year-old dudes getting lessons from 14-and-a-half-year-old kids, but it happens when these kids are really well schooled in how to identify a problem and kind of go right to the root cause and say, hey, you're out of balance, or you're not, you're dragging your brake, or your body position is completely out of balance. So, so I think that getting a small bike is good because it will teach you a lot of things, because you're not going to mask some issues with power. You're going to have to pay attention to the RPM you're in, at your RPM you're at. You're going to have to pay attention to the gear you're at. The lightweight feeling is incredible, especially when you're out of balance. But on a bike like that, but it just doesn't have the torque. Like when you're a 200-pound person like me, you can't just like be in the wrong gear and roll the throttle on and expect the bike to pull you out of it. You have to bang a downshift or maybe two. You have to be good with the clutch to, allow the RPM to come up and then settle it so you don't like either spin the tire ridiculously or bog the motor. The X is much better than the it has just, it has a little bit more torque, but it's still kind of a really racy bike, like any 125 for that matter. So I think you're dealing with kind of it's a double-edged sword or a slippery slope, shall we say? You think the same? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have an idea on a better bike?
Not a smaller bike.
No, not a small, but maybe I would say where you're at and stuff, maybe a 250 4-stroke, because you just get that little bit of additional torque. You get a longer spread in the power band, and the weight difference isn't that big. It's not that huge, but when you start talking about technical trail, that's when it gets difficult. If you're on regular flowing trail and stuff that isn't really crazy, where you don't have to really rely on the clutch, the YZ125X would be fine. But maybe in this case, maybe a YZ250FX or a WR250 could be a slightly better choice. I think you would just enjoy it more. I have a YZ125 in the garage that Matt asked to borrow, and then he asked if the Tequila was talking when I said that, and I was gonna say, bring your bike over right now, ride your bike over to my house right now, and I was gonna look at it and see how well it was maintained and taken care of, and then I was gonna make the decision on whether I was gonna loan you the bike.
Yeah,
that was gonna be the deciding factor, not the Tequila. So
I promise it's in better condition.
But back to the YZ125, I take it out. I don't go do super gnarly technical trails on 125s anymore. I used to do it all the time because I wanted to stay at a very, very high level and be, make it easier to ride bikes. Then when I got on my 250 or whatever, the trails were just easier. But I don't do that anymore. I take that thing out when I can rip it, when I can hold the throttle wide open and places that are, they're technical but not super technical. And so there's a time when a 125 is the funnest bike ever to ride, period, and that'll never be replaced. But you just have to kind of decide what you're shooting for. And I don't know where the Tenere came into that whole thing. He threw the Tenere. He has a lot of different bikes. He has a wide range of bikes and tastes. Betas, Teneres, all kinds of stuff. So clapped out KTM 300s. What's the next one?
Todd Kurtz. I wish all the knuckleheads out there with the KTM 500 EXC would listen to Jimmy's response on the 70 horsepower KTM 500 Disclusion. I think Jimmy explains the whole power versus traction versus usability question as well as can be put into words. Peak horsepower numbers mean very little once you get to a certain point.
Thanks, Todd.
He's a very wise man.
Let's go around the horn here just to check to make sure everybody's good with this. Hey Ned, if you want to get more power out of your bike, what do you do?
I want to get more power out of my bike?
Right. Yeah. Ned, by the way, Ned McNabb here. It's my father-in-law. It's Heather's dad.
What kind of bike do I ride?
Well, I don't care what bike. It works. I have a
Any
technique that works on any bike. So you don't watch Tech Talk Taco Tuesday religiously? Man, I can't even get my father-in-law to watch or listen to this show. This is pretty bad. Matt, no, I'm going to go to now. Logan, you get next. What's the
Shift up, more throttle.
Right. Wow. Do you agree with him?
Oh yeah, but he didn't get enough of the chicken wing.
Okay. Don't chicken wing. Gabe, really? What's more throttle? So 4 out of 5 people in this room right now are absolutely 100% convinced that if you want more power, you turn the throttle farther. I think that's the one bit of free advice we give on this show all the time. Because next time you really think you want more power, figure out where your throttle's at, and if your throttle's already wide open, check your RPM. Just kind of if it's not really like revving, if it's like at maybe half of the RPM, you can downshift and you will get more power very quickly. Yeah, or quick downshift, like Logan said. So. Yeah, I'm gonna grab the next question because this is a long one.
Yeah.
Or Matt,
Please
do you
take
want to do it?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. So this is Chase Acklam. Acklam? That's probably right.
I think Acklam, yeah.
Yeah. So Chase had his own segment on our show number 58. I think we started off the show with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I think it was.
And he had something about 70 horsepower KTM's, but I'll let Matt read it off here.
All right, so Chase says, I guess it was kind of cool having my own special segment, LOL, but I think I need to clarify some things. So the 70 horsepower number, multiple guys are getting that number. It's not a special dyno or that some claim made out of thin air.
Okay,
or
I have to start interrupting. Okay, because is he defending himself? I'm going to defend myself. Either way, so when I jokingly say special dyno or all this stuff, you have to understand that a dyno is a measuring instrument, and if you're going to compare things back to back on a dyno, you need to use the same dyno. You can't use Jimmy's dyno for me saying, hey, I built a pipe for this bike. Look at what number I got in my dyno, because Matt is going to use his dyno, and Matt's pipe on Matt's dyno might actually make a better number. You have to put dynos are a measuring tool. So the number that comes out of the dyno, the number that they show you, in my world, even though they're supposed to be calibrated or whatever, is irrelevant. It's just, unless you're doing back-to-back on the same dyno, the numbers or anything. So 70 horsepower is just, it could be 65, it could be 75. I don't know. I don't care. But 70 horsepower sounds pretty strong for the KTM 500s that we're talking about. Not unachievable, but a little beyond what I think would be what you could expect. So continue.
So they actually sell 70 horsepower kits for the 2020 line, but they're often out of stock. You'd be surprised how manageable it is with the smooth and linear throttle. I agree you don't need that number for off-road racing, but it does have a distinct advantage over the other bikes off the line and in certain race conditions.
Okay.
Wait.
Hold on a second.
Hold on.
So they're often out of stock. This is the world we live in, that you can't keep stuff on the shelf. Although, why is these companies that are just this stuff flying off the shelf? Why? Anytime I talk to them, they're like, oh no, we don't have that, or what? It's always kind of it's a mystery. Why is it out of stock? Why is it?
Yeah.
Well, because, and why can't I ever get it? Because I what if I do have a dyno and I want to put all that stuff on a dyno? Usually the minute I say, oh yeah, I have access to a dyno, I'm going to run it on there, it's like all of a sudden everything's out of stock.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh wait, and how manageable it is with smooth power and linear throttle. I have ridden a lot of factory machinery, whether it's like 450, whether it's a factory rally bike or a motocross bike. I've had the opportunity to ride this stuff. pretty sure that those bikes are making that kind of power, whatever the number is. I mean, maybe on your dyno, that bike would make 75 because it is. And yes, they are very, very linear and very controlled. But I have yet to, in my years since we've come into the fuel-injected emission era, ride a bike that was, quote, a 70 horsepower bike that had a very good linear smooth delivery. Not to say that it couldn't be achieved, but the tune that I was given, the setting I was given, the bike they said, hey, hop on and ride this thing, it may have made 70 horsepower, but I never ever rode the bike there 99% of the time where it might have made that power, but it was not as rideable as a completely box stock bike was. And if I were pushed to go fast over a long period of time, i.e. off-road racing, I would choose the stock bike almost 100% of the time. Yeah, exactly. Blame me. Go ahead.
So I would also like to point out that he says you don't need that number for off-road racing, but then he goes and talks about how it's good in racing.
Right. So if you're doing a bomb run and you're good at doing bomb runs, you're going to use every ounce of power a 450 or 500 makes. So if you can get 70 horsepower and you're doing a desert racing bomb run, I agree with him. Yes, he's correct. You want to do that. But when you start talking about that horsepower number, I would be more concerned with the tire that I was running, because you need traction at that point. And then, having the spread of power, that peak number, that 70 is great, but I sure hope that the torque curve is very flat and pretty high up there as opposed to this, peaky thing, because you'd have to gear your bike absolutely perfect. And I tell you what, on a bomb run, although everybody would like to think that the minute they, take off the line, they're wide open and they're never letting up, you're probably modulating the throttle to go around bushes or rocks or whatever is coming there. And traction, every time you turn that throttle back on, you hope you get traction. You don't spin right past where it makes good. So, but I do agree with them. Yeah, you can use the more horsepower you can get, the better. But keep going.
Okay, so he talks about how they do well in District 37. But if you want to get nitty gritty, then you could say that having a much higher torque allows you to run lower RPM, which reduces rotational momentum. I know Husky played with the position of the engine to reduce that because many riders claim it helps the bike feel lighter, which is obviously a big deal in off-road racing. I'd just like to point out that the 35 horsepower that comes on the stock bike was not a specific number that Husqvarna or KTM wanted to have.
Okay. Okay, yeah, one more line.
That is solely due to emissions regulations and nothing else.
Yes. If they could sell the bike at 50 horsepower, I absolutely guarantee you, I bet you they would. But this is the world we live in. You have to be clean, emissions clean, and you have to be noise compliant. And the noise one is the one that's very difficult. That's the one that's the hardest to do, because you can get a very high horsepower motor to run really, really clean. I mean, it's just efficiency. That's what they do. But so when we start talking about when I start sitting here touting like I can ride the 35 horsepower bike faster and stuff, there is something strange, and I don't know exactly how to explain it. Maybe you can, because you're a scientist more than me. Entry level scientist. Yeah, I didn't get to the entry level. I got turned around at the door. So bikes that make less horsepower tend to feel lighter. Power adds weight, and I don't know exactly why. And my theory is that when you have a bike that makes a lot of power, it's wanting to loft the front wheel. It's actually picking the bike up onto the rear wheel. And when we think about it, if the bike is riding on with both wheels on the ground and tracking, it's the weight is more on the it's more in the center. But the minute it goes up onto the rear wheel and all that weight transfers to the back, now all of a sudden you have a bike that's more like a pendulum. Think about it, but it's swinging on the rear wheel. Yeah. So now when you go to turn it, the axis is now longer as opposed to when it turns on the front wheel. The engine is in the center, as opposed to now all of a sudden all your weight is out in front of you and you're trying to swing it.
Yeah.
That's why I feel that, and the more power you have, the easier it is for that to happen, even at lower RPMs. You know, so you give a 500 4-stroke, a quarter throttle. Well, you have to get to like 3/4 throttle on your 250 4-stroke to make that weight transfer, to make that bike all of a sudden feel heavy.
Yeah.
So and there is some rotational mass in there as well. All of a sudden, on a 500, the crank is heavier, the piston flying up and down is heavier, and that weight is now farther in front of the pivot point, which is the rear wheel. Is it making sense to you, Logan? You're going to go into physics when you get older?
I'm surprised. Why haven't you? Because you seem to be doing pretty good so far.
I understand it on a dum-dum level.
That's not dum-dum. That's not dum-dum.
Okay, so dum-dum sits around and thinks about this stuff like all the time.
That's how you get to anything in science. You got to sit around and think about it, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, I got to go test it and try to explain it. That's all science is.
I would be so lucky if the apple would have fallen out of the tree and hit me in the head. Logan, you going into physics?
I don't know.
It's fun. It's fun.
Then all of a sudden you could start talking about this crazy dirt bike stuff.
Yeah.
It's money too.
Or we could just sit around and be dum-dums and ride dirt bikes all the time. Worked for me. But anyway, so how do we get into this discussion? Okay, so that's why power adds weight to the bike. And what they do, what I know they do on factory bikes, on works bikes and stuff, is they want to have a lot of power, but they really work hard on eliminating the rotational mass. So they use lighter components that are spinning. They make sure the unsprung weight, because the unsprung weight does interesting things to bikes too. It's acting opposite or in different planes than the bike is. So you want to have light wheels, as light as you can. That's why they have titanium axles and things like that. So there's so much going on there. But most riders are not of that high level, feeling that. But most riders will start feeling that the heavier bike, the more powerful bike feels for some reason heavier. So a lot of times adding power to a motorcycle is a little bit of a disadvantage. And I've been involved in some tests where the lower horsepower machines turned faster lap times than the higher power machines. And it influenced the direction of where that bike was going to go.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're back to...
Okay. It's a good thing I had my finger where we stopped. I did not move it.
Yeah, I just took it off the rails.
So he's talking about how... basically, the next sentence is like it wasn't to make it feel more manageable. He's just talking about the lower horsepower for emissions. So moving on to forks, Cooper's bike was built and maintained by the Team RPM off-road team. And as I'm sure you know, they're a pretty serious outfit. They use Explorers for endurocross and will...
As well as
National Hare and Hound, and they do tell me the horror stories they have had with the AER fork, despite them being the expected choice for endurocross. I'm not a professional, and the Explorers being better wasn't my opinion. I was told that by both Team RPM as well as the Just One guys who have had the bike on display in their office. Honestly, I just trust them more with the recreational riders' opinions. I just picked up a 2020 501 FES myself, and in my experience, the bike was way too choked up stock. Being able to bring the front end up at high speeds out here in SoCal is pretty important. And the 35 horsepower in the washes with the 1448 tooth sprockets just doesn't cut it for a big bike. At that point, it's just like riding a 250 thumper with the weight of a 500.
Okay, so back onto the forks. I guarantee you that Team RPM, knows their stuff, and they do good things, and they have their opinions. I mean, it's like there's certain factory teams that run air forks when the production bikes don't come with them, and there's other teams that run spring forks when the production bikes don't come with them, based on their testing and their experience, and that's what they can do. I mean, they're allowed to do that, whether it's, you know, because of sponsors or because of, you know, some testing. So I don't know. I remember he said something about Did he say something about failures in the last one? There was some failures with the air forks.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Actually,
I don't recall. I think for endurocross, man, endurocross, who knows? I mean, that's not normal riding. Endurocross is as much like supercross is to motocross. Endurocross is to regular off-road riding. You know, you would not want to ride a professional supercross rider's bike at the motocross track. It would be horrific. It'd beat the crap out of you.
I've heard the forks don't even move when you sit on those bikes.
Depends on the rider, but yeah, they don't want the forks to dive because, you know, they're hitting the jump faces so hard. Mm-hmm. They don't want them to compress in because they compress in, they got to spring back out. You know, they hold up. They kind of want them to blow into the mid stroke and hold themselves there. That's kind of the thing. They want, like in the hoops, they want the bike to get long and low and stable.
Yeah.
Endurocross, you know, it depends on where the rider wants to feel comfortable. Like when they go through those rock gardens or when they hit logs, you know, what do you want it to do? An air fork may or may not, depending on the rider, be too progressive. Mm-hmm. You know, you want it to blow through the stroke to absorb it, where other riders may want a very progressive suspension setting to really, you know, have some safety built in so they can hit things super hard. Yeah. I would love to ride, you know, these different team bikes just to, you know, not to say whether it's good or bad, to learn about their settings, to understand why they're using it. And I don't have a solid opinion on which would be better at which fork would be better in endurocross, because you know, and then they do go in there and modify them and change them, and I think either of those forks are modifiable in a very, I don't want to call it infinite level, but to a, you know, within their component, you know, range, they can kind of keep their main character. You know, the open cartridge fork tends to be, you know, softer, more plush, blow through the stroke, maybe a little less consistent, and the air fork would be more progressive and probably offer a more consistent, you know, damping feel. So on the suspension side, I'm not getting down on him for you know, picking one or the other. Right. I'm very happy with both of those forks stock, because that's most of the way I've ridden those bikes. I tend to run a little higher oil level than stock in my open cartridge forks, and I run a little bit more air than standard and a little less oil than standard in the air forks that I've tested and ridden. But that's my personal setting, because I like very progressive feeling. Yeah. So and his bike is way too. So the biggest thing with the stock FESs or the KTM EXCs or any emissions compliant bike is when you start riding it and you're talking about this power and this, you're gonna have some throttle response, some reduction in throttle response. And just like we talked about on the KTM 390, you know, they've actually tuned it into the way that the fly-by-wire works. You get the same sensation on a very corked up emissions-compliant bike. You know, the quarter turn you used to do to get to the bike to really respond now requires a half a turn. Yeah. What you're doing at 4,000 RPM, you now need to be doing at 6,000 RPM. This brings back in the rotational mass, but I think it's kind of a moot point because it just is what it is. There's a couple real easy things you can do. I don't think it's like riding a 250 thumper, because you should ride an emissions compliant 250 bike, because guess what? They weigh about 6 pounds less than the KTM 500, and then you feel the difference in power. Yeah, you know, the power makes the weight. It's not the weight of the bike. You don't feel that 6 pounds, but the 500 will feel a lot heavier than a you know, power to weight 250 ratio. EXC, or you know, even between a 350 EXC. So there's just a lot of different things going on there. You know, it's more like riding a 350 than a 250, because 250s are pretty anemic. But I promise you would be pretty impressed with if you actually, you know, rode a section on both of those bikes. You know, we'll uncorked and stock and uncorked, or 250 versus 500, and did all this stuff, you'd be really impressed with how fast you're riding through something, even though your brain and you just don't feel like the bike's taking off and going that fast. So we were riding around in a flat track today.
Yeah.
A perfectly flat, smooth track with, medium traction.
Yeah.
And at one point I was riding a TTR 125, and at another point I was riding a Christini 450. Net, I could blow by you on that Christini 450 on the straightaway.
Yeah. But
Pretty
I was keeping
easily.
up with you on the corners, actually.
But going around the track as a whole, we were kind of going around the track at the same.
And I was on an old XR 100.
Yeah, and I was on a Christini 450.
Yeah.
So it's like I had all wheel drive, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't doing much.
I know you still slid out almost.
Yeah, I know.
But on the TTR 125, you were blowing by me, no matter where on the track. Like on the corners, you were going a lot faster.
Yeah, so it has to do with technique and track. It all comes down to traction, balance and traction. And Logan, what were you riding?
CRF 125F.
That's your sister's bike, right?
Yes.
Does she know you took it?
Not entirely sure.
Oh, so maybe I shouldn't have ridden it. That's a very fun bike, by the way.
Yeah, it's torquier than the 100.
Yeah, and
that 100 is a cheater, by the way. It's got a little kit.
Oh, it does.
A little kit on it. That's
okay.
That's why you have to run that choke where you do, because it needs to be cleaned.
Okay, because I was gonna say it's like this old XR 100 is a little bit more I feel like it's got more than like some KLX 110s I've ridden before. So
yeah. Well, so did we answer Chase? Thanks. That's your second segment. You can sponsor a Dirt Bike Test and Tech Talk Taco Tuesday if you'd like. We call it Chase's Sponsor a Segment. I usually don't take money on what he sent me. Somebody actually tried to pay me on PayPal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for this show, and I sent his money back. But Chase, feel free to,
So send us one of those 70 horsepower kits.
No, I don't. I want to give him 45. I want to tell him how to. Okay, so Chase, this is what I would do if I were you. I would buy a JD Jetting tuner. I shouldn't say this because they should sponsor this damn show. I've done a lot. I would get a fuel tuner, like a Dobeck, an EJK, or a JD Jetting tuner. I would maybe replace the muffler with the FMFQ and or just pull out that screen on the back. There's an end cap you can get. Check out tacomoto.com, tacomoto.co. Tacomoto Co. He has a what do we call that sheet? What's the sheet called? Remember, we always get confused with this, a white sheet. He has a white sheet that explains the different things. Don't go all the way down, replace the ECU, pull the reeds out, cut the muffler off, row. Just unrestrict the muffler a little bit, add a fuel tuner, and that bike will have more power than you ever need. Resist the urge to take the reeds out, because you're very rarely, even in the desert, riding at an RPM where the reed becomes a restrictive feature. In fact, I haven't measured them, but I've been told the reeds in the air intake are the same reeds that are in the KTM 300, and the KTM 300 sucks twice as hard and makes plenty of horsepower the way it is. So your 500 that's not really taking in air as much should be able to pass enough air through that thing. So give that a shot, and I promise you're not going to be disappointed. I probably just saved you close to $2,000 compared to the 70 horsepower kit that I don't even know about. I'd like to ride one. I would really like to ride one, especially one that has good throttle response and doesn't get jerky or whatever, because then I won't know what color throttle tube thing to put on.
Yeah.
So
that's really important. I think that adds a horsepower depending on the color.
What's the most horsepower one?
Probably red.
Red.
Very aggressive. Red is dead.
Red. One more question on that, Logan? Is that where we're at?
Mitch OGB Electron Been on YZ250, same carb for years, and never had issues. Girlfriend's new TPI burns 2 times the fuel than my clapped 05 does.
So Mitch is saying he has a Electron carburetor on his YZ250, and we have been told, and from what I understand, they are very efficient. And he's had that's good that he has all that time. I need to test it to explain it, but what that's telling me is that your girlfriend is turning the throttle way the heck harder than you, and you need to get on the gas, buddy, because if she's burning that much fuel on her TPI bike, you're getting left in the dust because you have to turn the throttle a lot to burn fuel on one of those. Yeah. So yeah, Mitch, thanks. Have your girlfriend tune in. So glad she's twisting the throttle. I'm going to start working backwards on some of these questions. Hey, you know who just joined in the chat room there, Matt? Your nemesis, Brian Horton.
Oh, Brian?
You know what? He's got a job doing trail clearing up in on the trails up in Idaho, single track trails.
Oh, really?
So that's thankless work, but
yeah, good for him.
He wanted to know if I could get him a trials helmet because he's like, I'm going to be wearing a trials helmet. Can you get me one to test? I'm like, they're hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
So let's see. Scott Summers always said he went fast on the seemingly slower XR600 compared to the CR250R. Scott Summers is a freak of nature, so don't bring him up on this show. He's also the guy that picked up XR600s, and I've seen like recently during this COVID thing where people were like locked at home, I saw racers trying to pick up their lightweight 4-strokes and their 2-strokes, and they couldn't do it. So cheers to Scott Summers because they were a different kind of men back then. Todd Hicks thinks I need more tequila or wine. A wine glass of tequila is what it was called. Weren't we going to do something with that? We're going to put it someplace so everybody could see it? Yeah. Let's see. George thinks I'm doing pretty good on the Yoda thing. I know some guys who won the Score Class 21 championship 2 years in a row racing 1. What's that? I'm going backwards, so lining up the thing there.
Racing.
I didn't think that had anything behind it. I couldn't find anything.
San Felipe Bob says that he thinks that the guy who was asking about the YZ125X should go with the YZ250X. That would be another great option, too. Robert Miller says, another question, Jimmy. Do you do a Bike of the Year episode?
Would it just be the KTM 500?
No, the Husaberg.
Oh, the Husaberg 570.
Husaberg 570 has won like the last 17 years in a row or whatever.
Well, I thought the XR 400 was a.
You know that. Oh, I gave up on those.
Wait. So before, what happened with the 570?
Okay, so here's what happened with the 570. Everybody's been waiting for this. It's a 570. So I was out riding with a bunch of guys on H bikes. Can't say the name because they won't sponsor the show, but they're red. And I was on my H bike, which is a Husaberg, and it's like white and blue and yellow. It's really nice. It has some orange in it. 570, by the way. It was absolutely, without question, the most powerful bike on the ride. Just like even unloading it from the truck, you could tell that it was the most powerful bike there. I mean, the engine has a 70-degree slant in it that's really unheard of in. Yeah. I mean, Yamaha tried to copy some of that stuff, but my Husaberg, leading up to this, and I'll tell you the one thing I do not like about the Husabergs is that at least that particular bike is you do not want to ever have to work on it. It don't, with that engine orientation and the frame design, and it was one of the very first fuel injected 4-strokes. There's a lot going on there. Yeah. Maybe too much. So you don't ever have to want to work on it. So anyways, I was out, we were out ripping, and I was just annihilating them. All they saw was like rooster tail coming off this thing. Like the front end, there was a lot of flowers. It was desert bloom and stuff like that, and the flowers were like encroaching on our trails. There was flowers flying everywhere. These guys were like covered in flowers from from the roost. And mostly, it wasn't really just the Husaberg roosting them. It's like the vortex it created would actually pull the leaves off the flowers and throw them in the air.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like that. But every once in a while, the Husaberg go boop, and like cut out, and like somebody was hitting the kill button. And so I jack with stuff. I have a lot of different switches. Like one switch on the bike says it's ignition curves. It's 3 different curves. It says stock, mild, and wild.
Yeah.
So it's got that button on there, and those actually have the kill buttons in them. I had 2 of them because one's actually the light switch, and there's a lot of wires and things. I used to have heated grips on it, which have now been removed. So we started figuring it was like an knew it was an electrical problem.
Yeah, yeah.
So we started diagnosing the problem. And I had a Dakar factory mechanic named Kendall Norman who was there, we've had a Husaberg discussions before. He's like, why do you ride these things? And they're so stupid. And like, why would you ride something like that? So Kendall loves to like pull out his dikes and come close to my Husaberg.
Yeah.
And want to just cut it. He wants to clip it, just snap the thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. But he helped me. We, started removing wires. I think we took every wire off that thing to the point where, and it was intermittent, and it'd run fine, and then all of a sudden, and I started noticing like, you know what, when we're going fast and we're moving a lot, not a problem. But we started doing slower. I'd have to stop and wait because with that much power, you have to wait a long time for even like riders like Johnny Campbell to catch up to you.
Yeah.
So when I would wait, I'd go to take off again. They would do these like it was like somebody was tapping the kill button.
Yeah.
And so we started removing all these wires. And we were in this one really technical wash, and I had to wait a long time because even in a technical wash, Husaberg with more than 75 horsepower on record. I had to wait
on the Jimmy dyno.
I had to wait. Yeah, the butt dyno, and that thing can be calibrated instantly. So the longer I waited, the more it would do it, and finally it wasn't starting. It was intermittent. So now we had all the wires off it. We actually so I had to use these 2 wires, the stock wires for the kill button by manually touch them if it would start it back up. But we noticed it cooled down, it'd start up, run fine. If it heated up, it got cold. Managed to make it back to the truck. I actually went and tried to redo a hill climb that I wanted to go do, and it was just like somebody was tapping my kill button, and then, because it was cool when I rode up to it, I got up the hill climb and it started, and it got worse and worse because it was high load, a lot of heat, and then even riding down until it cooled back down. So went back to the truck, parked the truck, really checked all the wires. Actually like started slitting the covering on the wires that went behind the voltage regulator and all this stuff to see if there was nothing. Everything looked good. Bike started right up when we were done doing it. Like, oh, we must have touched something. Okay, loop 2, let's go. Went out. We were moving along. It was just fine. We got into some technical stuff. It heated up again. Started getting intermittent. Wouldn't start. The longer it sat, it wouldn't start at all. But if it cooled down, it'd start up, run for a few minutes. So I'm going, okay, stator. That's just kind of a normal thing, or it has been a normal thing on Hondas in the past.
Yeah.
But the Hondas, typically the exciter coil is connected to the stator. And a lot of times the stator's a wire in the stator starts vibrating, and the stator, rewound stator, whatever it is. So I looked at it's a KTM part, a Husaberg part. It's the exciter coil is separate, and so I looked at everything and took it apart, and I talked to a few people that know more about this than myself. Alan Roach from Baja Designs for one, a couple other people that have some guys that used to mechanic for Husaberg racers, back in the day, and they said, hey, it's the exciter coil. It's that's the one that reads the pulse off the crankshaft and stuff. And when I pulled that thing out, those wires were not pliable. they were hard on that thing. So ordered another one. Actually, the guy from Cycle By, Bob, I think I talked about him last week. He was one of the guys I talked to about it, and he's like, yeah, that's probably going to be it. Ordered one of those things, got the part, put it in there. Bike runs fine. And so I went through, sanded out all my wiring, all the stuff Kendall tried to cut. You know, he wanted to cut the fuel line. He wanted to clip. He wanted to clip the every wire on there. He just like, let's just clip everything. No, actually, Kendall was super helpful. We were both sitting there diagnosing like what could be the problem. Put a new exciter coil, and the bike seems to work fine. So that may be what we're going to go ride tomorrow. To see if it's completely fixed.
Okay.
And then another thing is, so I was out riding one of my KTM 500s. It did the same damn thing. And you know how things go in threes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like something, you know, when one, you know, like if you're gonna snap change, you're gonna snap 2 or 3 or 5 of them.
Yeah, yeah.
It may be exciter coil season. I don't know. I don't really know.
Oh no.
So. Yeah, that's what happened to the Husaberg. It's back up and running, except I need to get some new TM Design Works chain guides and disc guards for it because I also snapped those off on this little particular ride. But they were 19 years old.
Oh, really?
The parts on that bike is like 18, 19 years old or something like that.
The 570?
The 570. It's a 2000. I got it in 2008.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize they were that old.
Yeah.
So I actually do have a question about the 570. So why did that design not really take off? Because it seems like everyone who's ridden them really likes them.
Oh, because they're all a bunch of freaks. They don't know what they're talking about. Because at the time it was really good. It does do some stuff different, but basically KTM, when they were developing the new 3 versions ago 500, they rode that bike and said, "Oh, this thing works good." So they worked extra hard on the next version. And there's some frame design things that the Husaberg guys tripped onto, and just, you know, the fact that you could have your crankshaft up there, and they got the fuel injection dialed, and KTM made a 500 that was way lighter, way easier to work on, more conventional, better. Like doing something different in the motorcycle industry, doing something that's like out there does not work. Look at Cannondale's.
Oh, Look at, I have a trigger. It has a diad.
Yeah. But I mean, look, Cannondale made a motorcycle.
Oh, really?
Oh, here we go, kids. Yeah, so Cannondale made a motorcycle. That. You knew that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they made a motorcycle, and go look at the Cannondale motorcycle, and then look at a YZ450, or you know, and then just go, huh? It's nothing new. Like there was other companies that did it way back in the day.
Yeah.
Some stuff. So, yeah. Kyle McCoy wants to know, is it true that you once did a 100-mile foot race? Yes. That was... I want to do another one, but that's stupid. Karen Donahue, got my first bike, the FE501. So far, so good. I didn't know what to expect. Is that a good first bike? Just go straight to the top, FE501.
Grab a handful.
Yeah. So Todd Kelly says, as a follow-up as well, I installed the aftermarket Slavens idle screw on the throttle body of my 19 300 TPI Recluse EXP, HC head, V4 stock 6 days exhaust. Okay, you're so far down modification row. Any one modification that you did probably does not apply to a person with a stock bike, but I'll keep going. I was having issues with the hanging idle, and you suggested turning down the idle. The air screw didn't help turning down the idle, but the aftermarket idle screw did the trick. Now I'm able to turn the idle way down, air screw in. Now the bike starts much easier and runs much crisper, and idle isn't running on when the throttle is chopped. Well, like I said before I read the first of that question, all the other stuff probably caused the problem, and now you need that idle screw. I'm glad that kind of helped out. But if you're having an idle issue with what's different about that screw, I'd be interested to know. Robert Miller, Jimmy, what's the best modification you could do to a Honda TR200 Fat Cat?
My grandparents had Fat Cats.
Sell it and buy a Yamaha BW200. Are you kidding? No, wait. Wait for KTM to make one. This show's sponsored by KTM, by the way. KTM might have
Wait, really?
What would you call a KTM fat cat? Logan,
What?
you're looking at Cannondales.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool, right?
They look so.
They're so huge looking.
The exhaust is pretty weird.
Because they came out the back, kind of like a YZ450, except they didn't run it around the cylinder head. And the other thing is that bike did not have a Kickstarter. No Kickstarter. Todd Kelly, I see the word Christini, so I'm going to read this just verbatim. When I bought my Christini, I found the previous owner had one of the clutch fibers explode in the clutch pack of the Recluse Z-Start Pro. Replaced the steels and fibers and have drained and filled the oil numerous times to get as much of the debris out as possible. I put 20 hours on the bike since with no problems. Any chance the debris will cause permanent damage and need a full rebuild sooner? So, Todd, I don't know, but generally the oil filters in that motor, which is the same as a Honda Sierra 450, will do the job of keeping the debris out before it gets pumped inside of the crank or pumped up into the camshaft area, which are two critical areas. Whether there's pieces lodged around, make sure you do the screen and the oil filters and all that stuff. And if you're now running oil through there and those are coming out clean, you're probably in good shape. But it depends. Let's see. Got any other ones? Anybody else have any questions on this thing? My feed here is locking up. Hey, Todd Hicks mentioned that Skylar Howes won Vegas to Reno on the FE 501. How much horsepower did he have? That's what I want to know. I can never tell which direction we're supposed to. Hey, we're missing Victor, by the way. I guess he's on another Facebook timeout. Mm-hmm. And a few of your friends say that you're muy borracho, whatever that means.
I'm not.
It's Spanish for the drunk. Borracho is the drunk. Yeah. So, man, we've gone an hour, almost 2 hours now, right, Gabe?
Yeah.
How come you didn't cut me off?
It's not my job to cut you off.
Oh, it isn't? Why, you're getting paid by the hour?
Pretty much.
No, the show you're on piece rate at the show. Yeah, it's per show, I think. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to renegotiate or something like that. Somebody says don't stop talking about the Husaberg. No, I'm done with it talking about it. We're gonna ride it tomorrow, Matt. Have you ever ridden the Husaberg?
Yeah, I've ridden it. I rid it when I was like 15, and it almost ripped my arms off.
Right. Yeah.
I've ridden it because you have more than one, right? You have a couple of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Most insane people do.
Yeah. So actually, I do have one more question about the Husaberg though. So you said Husaberg was developing it, and then KTM stumbled upon. Did KTM own them at this time, or was Husaberg still its own separate company?
No, KTM bought. So So Husaberg was basically the guys from Husky when Husky was bought by the Italians, and these guys were into their four strokes. They built the early Husky four strokes. They wanted to keep making four strokes. So this is late 1980s. They stayed there and they formed Husaberg, and they started building four strokes, and they had some really radical designs for four stroke engines. And very lightweight. They were modeling after two strokes and using the minimum amount of parts. They weren't putting big giant counterbalancers and oil pumps and stuff in there. So they did that for a number of years. And when KTM decided to start really getting heavy into the four strokes, they bought Husaberg, kind of like what you're saying they're doing with other companies.
Yeah.
i.e. Husky, Gas, etc. So they bought that group to grab some of the technology, and the early KTM RFS four strokes are essentially the Husaberg motor, kind of with the head spun around backwards, so that things are on a different side. Some of the unique features to that motor were, and it's funny because I saw someone that was supposed to know what they were talking about having to drain the oil or drain the coolant to replace a clutch on a KTM RFS 4-stroke, which isn't the case because all of the coolant is up in the, the oil, the side cover comes off like a 2-stroke, and all that's in there is engine oil.
Yeah.
All the coolant is up on the camshaft. They were spinning the impeller off the camshaft, not off of the crankshaft, which was one of the Husaberg ideas, to do that kind of stuff because they didn't feel like they needed coolant in the cases. Which, that can be debated.
Right.
So, but anyway, so KTM bought them, and then they were using Husaberg as this kind of boutique brand, a little bit, different, kind of like they are with Husky. It's different, but that 570, that 70-degree engine was this one skunkworks project they let those guys loose on, and some of the guys, and it was some of the Swedish guys, and there was definitely some Austrian guys in on that project. Some of those guys went on to design a lot of the really, really good, very successful KTM products after that.
Okay.
So I think they let them do it because if Husaberg jacked it up, if the brand Husaberg jacked it up, it wouldn't reflect poorly on, the mothership on KTM. But that's just my opinion. And I think they did a great job developing fuel injection for the bikes that were coming out later.
Yeah.
The engine concept was ditched after a few years, but
yeah.
I think they just learned that it wasn't necessary to do that. They could get that kind of handling characteristic with conventional methods.
Right.
So, did that answer the Husaberg semi-history question?
It did. And actually, it spawned one other one.
Okay.
I don't know how much longer. It can just be really brief. So
I don't know, Gabe, am I paying you by the hour? Am I paying you by the hour? Depends on the day. Yeah.
So, what do you think KTM's going to do with like the gas brand? So now they have 3.
Right.
So what are they?
KTM just introduced the trials bikes. Through Gas introduced the trials bikes. There are certain dealers. They've announced that worldwide their dealer network. So they're integrating it. They're trying. Those bikes are still being produced in Spain.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're going to work on just integrating the brand in. They've shown that they're going to race gases. Currently, they raced one with Laia Saints in Dakar, which was it's essentially the same rally bike that's a Husky and a KTM.
Right.
They are racing motocross. They did some 2-stroke motocross in international races previous to
the MXGP. Yeah, because now they have their own team.
And now they have some MXGP, which is gas. So they're who knows? I've asked multiple times on what's going on here, and they say, well, we have trials bikes. Whether there's going to be a gas enduro bike. By the way, the gas enduro bikes, the older ones, there's another brand, and I don't recall the name off the top of my head because I can't remember people's names or name brands sometimes. But those bikes are now being produced by another company that I think it's still being produced in Spain, but I heard they are going to be imported into the U.S., so there might be another odd color brand that evidently, according to Mitch, we will never test. I'd like to test a Beta 200, by the way. Just throwing that out there. But the other bald guy on the internet got it, and it's okay because,
Yeah.
You just hey, we got to we got to raffle something off. Do you have anything? Can we raffle the shirt off your back? Because somebody wants to know why they can't buy that shirt, Logan.
Why can't they buy that shirt?
It's only for team members. That's a special one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sweet. I feel special about the 2 I have, though.
Yeah, because you've worked here.
The one I have, though, is a little worn out. One of them is a little worn out.
Right. You can't use it as shop rag and then, ask for another one, but those are special.
No. I have one that's still clean, though.
Yeah. So the other shirts you can buy, if you want to go on our website, hit the store button, you can buy T-shirts. It supports us. And then one of these days I can get Logan or Gabe to actually, do the janitorial work and then also send the T-shirts out. But that falls on the boss currently. Next week, I was thinking about doing an all call-in show. What does anybody think about that?
If you can do it, yeah.
I have a phone right here that every once in a while, like, we can hook it up. Gabe knows how to do it. Call-in show could last like 3 hours. He'd get paid by the hour. Be all good. Hey, Matt, ring the bell. Listen to that. Yeah. Yeah, Mark Daniels, thank you. Good times. What was the motor that was a part on your post today? That was a Husaberg motor. Yeah. Highland Cycles got that. He identified it. He knew that the side cover and the shape of the side cover and the shape of the impeller cover was different. So he picked that out pretty good. So George claims he's going to be here next week. So that's a threat. Well, that's good because I've pissed Matt off enough. He's going to go home.
Yeah, I'm actually going back next Taco Tuesday.
Yeah. And Logan, you're going to make it back?
I don't know.
You don't know. That's the same answer I get from you every time. Who knows? So, hey, I think we've kind of answered most of the questions. Thanks a lot for everybody for joining in. It's been a big show. We're getting longer here. Oh, somebody wanted to know why we aren't putting these up, like why 50 and beyond we're not up on the podcasts on SoundCloud and on iTunes yet. It's because I haven't done the intros for them yet. It's on me. And then since I don't have any money yet, I haven't been able to pay Gabe, and that's why we're on. He's like threatening to strike or something like that. I'm not really sure. But you know what I told him, Logan? I said, if you quit, Logan's going to handle it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll pay you half of what I'm paying him, which is twice as much as I'm paying you right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. So that's how we work around here.
At least McDonald's is consistent.
McDonald's is consistent.
Yep.
Did you put in an application?
I will.
Oh, no, you won't.
Starbucks isn't that bad to work for, honestly.
Hey, Matt, by hosting this show, he got a job offer.
I haven't seen it though.
I got to get it to you. I saw it someplace. I'll get it to you. So
if I haven't responded because I haven't seen it yet. I promise it's not because I'm not interested.
No, he's very interested in taking on work and things like that. So again, thanks everybody for joining in. Thanks for Ned sitting in live in the show. How was it? It was great. Yeah, thanks for getting me past your bed. Thanks for getting me that beer. He didn't want to get up because he thought he might interrupt the flow of the show. So we'll wrap this one up and see you out on the trail, right, Logan?
Yeah.
Cheers.